Hi everyone, welcome to our little chat between Lisa and myself this morning. We're going to wait a minute or two for people to join. I think we've got a few registered this morning. We're recording this as well, so people can watch this back. But, yeah, we'll wait a minute or two. It's always interesting to look at the attendee list as it builds, see who you recognise. So we're planning to just talk through some lessons learned from building the data platform at Hackney this morning. Feel free to post questions in the Q&A. Anything that comes up as we talk, please ask and post in there. We've got plenty of time at the end of the session to go through questions. So yeah, more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I think Lisa and I can both confidently talk for a long time on all of the topics that we're planning to talk through this morning. So yeah,
and you get us together and it's even worse.
Oh, it's horrendous, isn't it? We're famous for just talking and talking and talking. Our half an hour long sessions usually stretch to at least an hour, if not more. So yeah, we've reserved a good chunk of time at the end of the session to go through your questions. So yeah, please feel free to post those. And any questions that come up, if you're watching this after the event, well, there's contact information at the end of the presentation, so you can talk to us on LinkedIn or go to websites, etc. So yeah, there's contact information for any questions. So yeah, please feel free to contact us. So I think we've slowed down on participants joining. If you're happy, Lisa, we'll make a start. Cool. So yeah, welcome. We're here to talk through the building of the data platform at Hackney, how Maytech was involved, and what Lisa has learned through the fairly interesting journey that we took to get there. So quick introductions. So my name is Jim Stamp. I'm the head of data here at Maytech. I generally look after all of our data projects from a, I guess, architectural standpoint, but also making sure that everyone that we have in the data capability has the skill set that Lisa and our other customers require. So yeah, that's generally what I do, but also outreach, doing architectural discussions, joining workshops, etc. So yeah, there's a whole load of things that we can do to help, and yeah, leading that. So Lisa, if you wanted to do a quick introduction to yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Stidle. I am the Data and Insight Manager at Hackney Council. And just to give you a bit of background about the Data and Insight team, we are a centralized team within ICT at Hackney. And we have responsibility for data analytics, data engineering, GIS, and some master data, including looking after our LLPG, which is our address database. And why we're here talking about the data platform is really the origins of it were from our cyber attack. We experienced a serious cyber attack in October 2020. Which I'll talk a little bit more about, and that kind of sparked off this whole project for building a new data platform in Hackney. And our vision for the data platform is to use that opportunity of the cyber attack to build back better for the future, to deliver a secure, scalable, reusable cloud-based data infrastructure that brings together the council's key data assets. And that will enable us to democratize data across the council, use technology to derive deeper insight from our data, and ultimately improve the lives of residents of Hackney. So that's me.
Perfect. Thank you. Can we have the next slide, please? So quick agenda. We're probably going to flip between sharing the screen and just having Lisa and myself talking to one another. So what we'll go through is we'll go through this agenda, and as we move through each point, we'll flash up the screen and then take it down again. So plan this morning, talk about the origin of the project. Lisa's touched on that slightly there, but we'll go into a bit more detail. What we've learned as we built it, both from the Hackney side and the Maytech side. And then what's next for Lisa's team and where they see they're going. A few surprise questions from Lisa as we go along, I'm sure, as well. And then on to questions at the end. So yeah, the origins of the project. So I think if I remember rightly, the original problem statement was more about recovering the data. So the bid was originally around recovering the data after the cyber attack. Did you want to talk a little bit about what that meant and why you had to recover the data?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we had a serious cyber attack in October 2020. But actually before that, I want to jump to what our data infrastructure looked like beforehand to give you an idea then what the impact was of the cyber attack. So at Hackney, we were fairly advanced in terms of local government, where we had a really mature data warehouse, lots of people around the council using business intelligence tools. We were experimenting with machine learning models to one of the use cases was looking at identifying illegal houses of multiple occupation, which was actually that information was being used in the field to knock on the right doors. And during the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, we brought together around 30 different internal and external data sets to try and identify our most vulnerable residents so that the council could proactively make contact with them, which we've got a lot of interest from other local authorities. From a lot of councils have done similar things, but I think we were fairly quick in being able to pull that information together because of all of the groundwork that we had done before. So I think as a team and as a council, we were in a really good place with our data before the cyber attack. But then it happened, and most of our data and our IT systems that were creating that data were not available, which really had a devastating impact on the services that we were able to provide, but the work that we do as well. So what that meant for us was we really had to build our data infrastructure from the ground up again. Most of our infrastructure previously was using on-premise servers that Hackney maintained, and we knew just generally we didn't want to go back to that, so we wanted to migrate everything into the cloud and use that crisis as an opportunity. So we knew that we couldn't just put back what we had in terms of our data infrastructure. We had to do something differently. It also meant that we have a fairly disparate and at times chaotic data landscape, where we've got recovered sets of data, we've got interim data that has been created while systems were unavailable, lots of Google Sheets, lots of Google Forms being used to run services, needs must. And then we've got new sets of data because we are also using opportunities to not bring back applications that we didn't think were meeting our needs in the first place. Universal housing is the prime example, where that was an application that was used by the housing team before the cyber attack. It was going to have to be phased out anyway because it was going out of support. So Hackney's been using that opportunity to build our own applications, but that means we have entirely different data sources than what we had before the cyber attack. It also meant that the team of the data and insight team, the work of the data and insight team looked completely differently. We had to just go into crisis mode, and most of the work in the aftermath of the attack was around helping people to try and collect information in a way that was fairly structured and could be usable in the future. So a lot of helping people to design forms and understanding what they had done to their Google Sheets and things like that. So, taking us away from, let's see if we can use a machine learning model to predict this, going back to how do you design a Google form. The team of the work drastically changed, and the priorities of the council drastically changed as well, because everyone was just focused on recovery, BAU, let's get back to BAU, not really thinking, what can we do in the future? How can we actually, use this opportunity to leapfrog and get back to a better place, not just back to where we were. So all of that was really driving where we were coming from in setting up the project in the first place.
It was interesting as from a Maytech point of view, because we were working with you before and after the cyber attack as part of the cloud migration. And it was interesting just seeing the focus of the organization
Yeah.
It was literally a binary flip onto a completely different focus. And for myself, joining Maytech around that time, and then joining the data project and just seeing the panic. It was panic. It just felt really, interesting to sort of just see you all just not really know how to do what you were hoping to do in the, just trying to map. Sorry. Why did you choose to go with the data lake? So as I said, we sort of, I think our response to the how do we recover data was along the lines of, actually, we don't want to recover your data. We want to help you build something that you can use to recover your data, but also do other things with. I was just interested in why. Was there a reason that you went with that versus, I don't know what the other responses were, but a bit about why you chose that?
Sure. I don't think at the outset we were specifically looking to implement a data lake, but it actually met the needs of what we were trying to do. So we were trying to migrate everything to the cloud and use new cloud-based tools. We were also looking to use open source tools and move away from doing all of our ETL in our BI tool, which is Click, so that in future, if we wanted to make a different decision on our BI tool, we could lift and shift that work elsewhere. We knew we wanted to be able to serve that data easily within different tools, be that Click, be that Google Data Studio. And that was difficult in the previous ways that we were doing things. And we knew that we wanted something better than we had before. So I mentioned the machine learning work that someone in our team was doing around identifying illegal HMOs. We didn't have an environment where we could productionize that model and actually put it into use. So we knew that we wanted something that would enable us to do that. So a data lake kind of ticked all of those boxes, but it wasn't just about the lake either. It was just also around the ways of working that would encourage. So trying to address some of the issues that, perennial issues for any data team, really. People around the council don't know what data is there. There's no metadata. I don't know what this data means. I don't know if I can share my data, or it's really difficult for me to create a data extract to share with this other person. And also standardizing the tools and the skills that analysts around the council have. So I'd say other proposals generally, I think, were trying to take us back to where we were and saying, like, we'll get you off spreadsheets. We already know how to get ourselves off spreadsheets. We want to know how we move forward from where we were already as a very mature data team.
Interesting. Okay. Right. Should we move on to the next bit? I think we spent, we'll get stuck if we don't move on. So moving on to what have the team learned? So I think that's the bit that I'd like to focus on the most. I guess personally, what have you learned, and what do you think your team have learned? And then again, I guess we could extend again to what has Hackney learned through doing this project?
Yeah, I think this is a really big question. And I'll kind of just touch in broad strokes, but you can probe me if you want more information. So I think this is true for me personally and for the team. We've learned a huge amount in terms of subject matter expertise. I mean, me in particular, I don't consider myself a very technical person. And when we were starting it out, I had to Google what is a data platform, and because a lot of people come from a data analyst background, and not from a particularly technical background, but from a more research and statistics driven background. And that's my background. So I've learned a huge amount about, the different tools that we use, working in AWS. All of that, before was such a mystery to me when I would hear all of these different service names. I had no idea what these things do. Working with different data sources. We've got a huge variety of different data sources that we're trying to access with our data platform, and that's been a real learning curve about actually what's easy, what's really difficult, what do we really need to press our suppliers on to make sure that we get that access to data. And then there's also just different coding languages that I'm not doing in particular, but the team are definitely learning. So some of the team were already using Python, but now we're having to learn how to use PySpark and think about things, how we process things in a different way. Terraform, a completely new language and concept. And that's also just brings me on to like the ways of working are completely different. I think as data analysts, we've had to become a lot more like developers and learn from the best practice there.
I have to say your team have effectively moved from being data analysts to being data engineers. It's one of those projects where you see such a change in the set of people. There's a couple, I won't mention by name, but there was a day I remember, must have been about a year ago, when someone said, I really enjoy doing unit testing and quality.
Yeah.
Just for an analyst, I personally, I've never heard an analyst enjoy doing testing. And it was such a moment of me just going, this is a team that's maturing in their data literacy and their data capability. It's just so much fun to see that happening.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we've learned a huge amount about the importance of documentation, which is something we always said we wanted to do, but we hadn't been very good at doing. Version control, you know, peer reviewing each other's code, why it's important to have a staging and production environment, all of those things. You know, we kind of knew from our other colleagues within ICT, but had never really adopted those ways of working. And then just finally, personally, I think I've just grown a lot as a kind of product owner and leader. So at the very beginning of the project, there were a lot of requests coming into the team that I didn't really feel confident in pushing back on. Whereas now I look at that and think, you know, I would handle that completely differently. I definitely would.
It was fun at the start. So I guess that leads on nicely to what would you have done differently?
Yeah, so that's one. I mean, the first is, you know, the initial use cases that we chose, I think, were the wrong use cases. I don't completely know what would have been the right ones, but I know why the ones we chose were particularly difficult. So we had two different use cases. One was our kind of strategic use case, which was an effort to get back to that vulnerability data set that we had put together before COVID. But that was just too big in scale. So we decided to focus on repairs. But actually, you know, we were trying to work with the service and convince them about why they needed this and how it would be useful. So we had to do both the why and the what and the how. So I think, you know, we really should have tried to look harder for a service that had a use case ready and was ready to use it. That would have given us a lot more momentum. And then the other use case was what we called our tactical use case, which was working with data analysts in parking to redevelop their data warehouse. And I think it was a bit too early to bring in data analysts from outside of the team to start using the platform in the way that they wanted it to be using it. So, you know, the team itself, we're flying the plane as we're building it, but then bringing parking in meant we also had passengers who were sitting in first class wondering where their glass of champagne was. You know, it's been a challenge. So that's one main thing. The other is around discovery. We didn't actually do a proper discovery at the beginning of the project because I think, you know, because of where we were as an organization, because of, you know, the urgency that we felt, we need to recover this data, we need to make it accessible, that we just launched straight in and we didn't do proper user research. And really, it wouldn't have made an impact on the project to spend 2 weeks doing a discovery. So I think that would have really benefited us.
I think that's my biggest regret, isn't pushing harder for that. I think when we started, completely understandably, there was a learn by doing sort of mentality applied to the project. And that was, you know, that was an obvious response to where we were as a team with the data that needed to be recovered and how quickly the pain was being felt immediately, and we had to fix things. And I think by just launching straight into the first thing that we identified as a group as this is a doable thing, we should try this. Yeah, I think we should have pushed harder for a discovery. I should have pushed you harder for a discovery. I mean, that's the normal way of doing it. You know, if we'd spent even a week just looking at the options, talking to a few teams, finding a service owner that had a proper problem that we could help fix, rather than having to do that internal sales pitch on, we can help you with a problem that you don't really know that you've got is a problem. That was hard. That was really hard.
You know, I don't know. don't know for sure if we would have found one, because as you know, I was saying, as an organization, we were just so mentally focused on getting back to BAU, recovery, that actually coming to someone and saying, oh, would you like to use your data a little bit differently? Or, would you like to change your operating model? That just wasn't a very appealing prospect for my colleagues.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think there was an aspect of shell shock in the organization when we first started,
Yeah.
wasn't it? So it might have been hard, but I think sitting back and at least saying, this is the type of shape of project that we're looking for, and maybe having 2 or 3 ideas that we could have looked at and chosen the best one. Repairs ended up being a good project, but it was a lot of work. There was a lot of work to get it up and running and to get it to a point where people could start using it. So yeah, I think it burnt the team out quite a lot, didn't it?
Yeah. Another thing, again, I don't know how we would have done differently, but something maybe someone else could do differently if they have a different organizational context to what they're doing, is to really think about the makeup of the team. So I think when we started out, I thought people in data and insight might become kind of the data platform engineers, not data engineers, but the platform engineers who would maintain and build the platform, because they just might enjoy that work. But it became clear that, we want to be the super users. We want the data platform. We love the data platform, but we don't want to build it and maintain it. That is a different skill set and a different person.
Yeah.
And like I'm sure many other organizations, we have difficulty recruiting developers and software engineers. So we didn't
Never mind
have
data engineers.
never mind data engineers, but we didn't have the right Hackney people on the project to really get that knowledge transfer. So I think data and insight have learned a huge amount, and we now have a lead Hackney developer on the project. But if he had been on from the start, it would have looked a lot different, I think. And data engineering as well. We have a data engineer with us from Maytech right now, a really experienced data engineer. And the data and insight team is really enjoying working with him. And, we just think, oh my gosh, if we had him at the beginning, that would have been brilliant. But we had already been looking for that person and to bring those skills on. But they're really difficult people to find. So if you can get those people, definitely make sure that you've got internal software engineers, some really experienced data engineering on your team.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think having a team made up almost completely of data analysts meant that we had an additional challenge of the learning curve was phenomenally steep, frankly. And that probably changed what we could build so significantly at the start, because it was a case of, we've got to teach you Python, we've got to teach you PySpark, we've got to teach you the concepts of a data lake, we've got to do infrastructure as code, because we wanted to build it properly so that if anything went wrong again in the future, you could just press the restore everything button. And so it was a case of, we had to spend a lot of time, and frankly, members of our team also needed to get up to speed on the Maytech side. I mean, we as a capability, well, the capability didn't exist then, I guess. To be fair, we didn't have a data capability then. Now we have professional data engineers that are now working with our software engineers on the same project to cross-skill and upskill. So yeah, that's definitely something we learned the hard way, is that data as a profession is significantly different to software. And I guess I knew that as probably the only professional data engineer on the team. I just hoped that we'd be able to scale better. We got there, and in fact, several of the team are now professional official data engineers within Maytech. So they've converted over and their skill sets have grown. So yeah, it feels like we all learned a lot of that stage of the project.
Yeah, absolutely. From your perspective, is there anything else that you would do differently aside from discovery and team?
I think that user research, I think you said you had it right. I think that user research should have been a strand that we kept going the whole time. I think we and you and I have had this conversation a few times. I'm not saying anything new to you here, but I think for everyone else, focusing on fixing problems that people have rather than fixing problems that you think people have is so important for a data platform to maintain stickiness. And I think we fell into the trap as a group of becoming quite internally looking. We didn't really look at what the problems were that we were trying to solve. And I think that, a discovery would have set us off on the right footing to then carry on doing that user research as we went along and actually working out what the problems were that people were trying to fix. I think the tools that we selected were good enough. I think we, with a bit more user research, would have selected some different tools. I think we more recently have started looking at the tools that people need to use rather than we think they need to use. PySpark, I still think, was a good choice for some users, but it clearly wasn't the right thing for others. I think the SQL solutions that we chose were perhaps deficient as well. The low code thing doesn't really happen. It isn't really a thing. I think people to do low code, but actually it doesn't really work. There are some tools around, but yeah, it's tough to do.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly tried one out, and it just didn't work very well. I think the concept of it was great, but it just didn't deliver what it needed to.
I keep being told it's much better now. We won't name it, but I keep being told it's much better.
They always say that, or it'll be better in 3 months.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Yeah. I mean, on technological choices, when you're making them, how do you allow for some flexibility, because things change so much, just within the services that we're using? Again, it might be much better now. How do you future-proof a design?
So I think for me, that evolving architecture is a well-known topic within software. Software frameworks and tools change all the time, and data is no different. It is just software with a very niche way of working. I think for me, the use of Spark as an underpinning service means that you have an open source solution. You can take your code and you can move it to any of the other cloud providers. You can go fully open source and drop all of the cloud provision stuff, host your own data platform in the cloud if you wanted to. You'd be mad to do it, by the way. It's hard work. But I think having that underpinning open source mentality is so important to be future-proof. I think we've got that with your platform. I think it's there with PySpark. I think we may have gone too far down the AWS route. I'm not saying they're bad tools, but I think for the team that you have, I think using Glue in the way that we did was perhaps not the best way of doing it. I'll be honest with you, though, I'm not sure what we would have used as an alternative. The steer that we were given at the start from your architectural colleagues was, we'd like to keep everything in AWS as much as we can, which limited what we could do. And the idea of bringing in an open source scheduler orchestration layer just seemed too much for you and your team at the start. I think now we could probably bring in something that was a bit more grown up than Glue and you'd be able to cope. Back then, there's no way if we brought in Airflow or any of the others, your minds would have just melted. It just wouldn't have worked. So yeah, I don't think we really could have done anything differently from a technology point of view, but I think you're future-proofed. You could replace Glue tomorrow with something a bit more, as I said, grown up, and still continue. All of your code would still work. Everything, you might need to change a few lines in each script, but the core code would still run. You could migrate over relatively easy, and Spark's not going to go away. It feels like it's there for a good few years yet. So I think you're safe for now.
Yeah.
And the surrounding tools can change.
Yeah. The choice to use AWS is another thing that I don't know if we would have done it differently, but I would have liked to consider it more to understand the implications. I probably I think we probably would have done the same thing, because as you were saying, all of our infrastructure colleagues were telling us, please do this in AWS. And we have a whole cloud engineering team now that didn't exist before the cyber attack, but that's meant we've actually got a whole team looking after the core infrastructure, and we don't have to do that ourselves, which I've seen in other local authorities where they're trying to do this without actually a cloud team there in place to help them. So they're doing it all. So if we had chosen something different, we wouldn't have support from our cloud engineering team,
Exactly.
which has been really crucial. But I think it would have been good to understand what else is out there, and what some of the pros and cons are before we had firmed up that decision.
I think there was an aspect at the start of the project where I felt that you and the team had so much to learn that I made some decisions without your input to just get the ground and the foundations and everything prepared so that you had somewhere to learn. I think if we just stopped and evaluated everything at the start, then we would have ended up just doing that analysis paralysis for ages, because you're learning the why and the what's, as you said, at the same time as trying to build something, and we would have just got stuck. So I think it was good to just go, let's just do something and give you a space to start growing, and then, but not do anything that meant that we couldn't undo. If you decide to replace glue, then you can, there's nothing stopping you from doing that. So hopefully we've designed it in such a way that now that you're more comfortable questioning and assessing those different tools, we can or you can replace them. Sorry.
I think that demonstrates the maturity of the team now from where we started, which we do have that confidence now that we're thinking, is this the right tool for us? I'm not sure, actually. Whereas before, we wouldn't have known, and we wouldn't know how to make that decision. So I think that just demonstrates how much we've learned.
I do feel slightly, it was very strange coming from a Maytech point of view, making decisions for your customer without actually involving them in the decision. It felt very alien to how we normally work, but it felt like something that I had to do at the start of the project because there was just no way we could do it. So I apologize for not involving you in those foundational choices, but hopefully it's okay.
That brings me to another question that, we're using pretty standard AWS services, but it does feel like we've had to do a lot ourselves from scratch, and all of the Terraform modules that we're developing and things. Do you think there is scope for just an open source blueprint for people to just implement an AWS data platform more easily?
So there is, and I think that those modules that we've created with you, it would be lovely if you open sourced it. That would be great.
Well, our repo's public now.
Is it public now?
Yeah, it's public.
Excellent. So there we go. So it's all there for everyone to use. So I think there is. We've got some ideas. We've got some thoughts about how we could start building a local government open and sort of premium sort of model data platform. It feels like, as an organization, Maytech's keen on giving stuff away. We want to write it once and leverage that each time. But there are strong possibilities for products. So trying to draw a boundary between having a really nice open source mentality, but also being able to charge for stuff so that we can make it better as well. It's a delicate balance. So we're thinking about what we could do in that space, but absolutely, there's definitely a scope for building some of these blueprints as open source patterns. And we're having now done it probably 3 or 4 times now on different data platforms, and finding us doing the same thing over and over again. And as we work with more local governments, I'm sure we will be doing almost exactly the same stuff again. And so building a local government ontology, which we can share openly, building some data sets that are based on that ontology as we learn more, as we work with more. And obviously, we'd love to involve you. Building a community so that we can start doing that would be fascinating. So, building some kind of Slack group that, you know, you and I can start putting what we've learned along with what we're learning from other councils and building that up as a first an ontology, then some shared data models, and then, you know, sort of collaborative analytical modules and sort of machine learning modules and visualization modules that we can all just get involved with. Would be so much fun and just transformative for local government.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we all are looking for opportunities to collaborate, but I think sometimes the technology gets in the way of that. You know, we're a member of the London Office for Technology and Innovation, and as part of that, I'm a member of a number of different data networks, and we always are looking for, you know, what data projects can we collaborate on? But actually, you know, it's the things at the beginning and the end really that you can collaborate on, but the how is so different depending on what you're doing. And I think we're slightly odd as an organization, or as a council at least, that we're using Google and we're using AWS, whereas most councils are in the Microsoft universe. So yeah, that has been a
shouldn't
barrier.
stop collaboration, because
No.
if you're all using, for example, Spark, you know, then it's the same. It doesn't matter which platform you're on, they're all the same. So yeah, I think we can do something, I'm sure.
Yeah, but we're not all using Spark, and I think, you know, that upskilling across the sector is really important. I mean, we're trying to do that within Hackney. We've got a data analyst community, and as I was saying, one of the things we want to try and address is that we've got data analysts spread all over the council, doing things in different ways, using different tools, but actually they're trying to do the same things. And that is just a barrier to learning from one another, sharing each other's work, shortcutting each other's work. So yeah, we want to do that within Hackney, but yeah, with other local authorities, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Should we move on?
Sure.
Right. What's next? What do you want to do as a team? What do you see as the next stage of the data platform now that MadeTech is starting to do the Homer Simpson fading into the head?
Yeah. I mean, you've already started, so we've already been dialing down the team, and we kind of have a skeleton crew on now who are finishing towards the end of August.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit nerve-wracking, but
stabilizers are definitely off now, right?
Yeah. I do really feel that it's time for us to fly the nest and try and do this ourselves. In terms of the roadmap and how we continue to develop the data platform, I think actually that's a difficult question to answer right now, because we're doing a lot of work on reviewing and developing our roadmap. One of the things that I've learned that I'm not particularly strong at through this process was understanding that kind of middle horizon of what the future looks like. I was good at knowing what we need to do in 5 weeks, what we want to get to in 5 years, but what are we doing in 5 months? That was really difficult throughout the entire project. We work with different delivery managers to try and develop our roadmap in a different way. You know, we've had some coaching around it, and it's continued to be a real challenge. And I've brought in an interim product manager who comes from a product background to do this. She's done a lot of user research and is kind of flipping a lot of our assumptions on their head, but has just picked things up so quickly. You know, it's amazing when someone actually comes in with a proper discipline to do the thing you've been trying to do, how easy it seems to come to them. So, you know, 2 weeks ago, before she started sharing some of her findings with me, I would have said, like, one of the key gaps that we hadn't addressed so far in the project was around actually how we facilitate different service areas to share data with each other, because we, at the very start of the project, we're looking at access control and how we do that, but it was very complicated, and we decided actually we don't need to do that right now, because all we need is to give housing access to their housing data, parking access to their parking data, and so forth. And so we've kind of sectioned things off in the data platform in terms of their permissions to view that data. And I thought, you know, the biggest gap is being able to share that data across those different services. But, you know, that is a thing I think we want people to need. but don't necessarily need right now. I want people to be sharing their data with each other. I want them to need to know something from another service. But actually, is that what they're saying they need right now? It isn't actually.
Yeah.
It hasn't come up in any of Jess, who is our product manager, hasn't come up in her user research. And I had her come to a data analyst lean coffee session that we hosted as well. And she suggested a topic to talk about, like, what's a data set that you need to access in the next 3 months that you don't currently have access to. No one voted to talk about that. Wow. No one. I mean, I was really shocked, and I thought, I mean, it's just, that is the difference, that someone from a true product background comes in rather than someone from a subject matter expertise, where I'm trying to create the version that I want to see, that I want to be true, but actually she's really got to grips with what is the true situation. So I think that's going to, the work she's doing is going to majorly change the way we prioritize. I mean, in terms of what is the most important right now is just a bit of stability. We've been doing a lot of changes in the platform as, you know, made tech get ready to roll off. And that has been a bit of a bumpy ride for our users. So I think we're all looking forward to a period of stability where we can really capitalize on what's already in there and not build out as much new stuff or try and bring new data sets in at such a quick pace. But the other context of this is we're also undergoing a restructure as a team. And anyone who on this call in local government will know what that means. I mean, we've been waiting on this for 18 months since we started this project. I'm sure at our kickoff meeting, we said, oh, by the way, we're going to have this restructure. We're only getting the actual consultation document, which tells us what the team looks like next week. Wow. So, you know, we're losing you, but also I cannot replace the team with the permanent team that we need in place quite yet. So, you know, out of necessity, we're going to need to slow down a little bit. But I think that works really well with all the work that Jess is doing, because when we start to gear back up, we'll be confident that we are building the right things and in the right order.
Yeah, brilliant, brilliant. Do you think so it's interesting. So when I think back to how you describe the way that you used Click before the cyber attack, and if I then think about that in the context of analysts not saying that they'd like access to data sets, they seem like very different worlds, because it sounded like in Click that everyone was just mashing and merging everything together in a relatively unconstrained way. Whereas now we've put everyone in these secure silos intentionally, with options to create anonymized versions of for sharing, etc. It's all there. It's all ready to go as and when people ask for it. But yeah, for them to say, for no one to put their hand up and say they want access to something, do you think that's because there's a literacy problem, or do you think that is a lack of core data sets problem? Do you think there are data sets that, if you had council tax, for example, or you know that level of data set, because there are issues getting some of those data sets in, right? So, I just wanted to say, I don't think we've had any questions on the Q&A yet. Just checking. No, I don't think we have. If anyone's got any questions, please ask. We've got a bit of time left. We've got no questions. I'm sure Lisa and I can carry on talking for 10 minutes, no problem. But yeah, I think if you've got some questions, that would be great. So yeah, back to the point. So is it because they don't see a need to join the data, or is it the data that they want not there? So they're not thinking in that way yet.
So I think there are a number of things driving this. I mean, going back to your point about how we were using Click, yes, it's true that we were joining a lot of data sets in there, but we as data and insight were doing that.
Yeah, I guess.
They weren't doing that. And they would see the output of that and not really recognize all of the work that had gone in. I think one of the main barriers is just people not understanding or knowing what else is out there. You know, I don't know what I don't know. So, I mean, that is one of the core problems which we're trying to address with the data catalog, to help people see what we have in the platform. But but you might have someone from public health, for example. They need to do a needs assessment on children's social care, and they go to someone in social care and say, I need some data. And the person in children's social care says, okay, tell me exactly what you want. I don't know anything about children's social care. I work in public health. So it's just that lack of awareness of what actually is out there.
Yeah.
But also, I think it is still where we are mentally as an organization. We still are in a place of, I need to get back to BAU, which is what's come out still a lot in the user research, that people are just like, I just want my dashboards back. It's not even just about getting access to data sets. It's like, yeah, I would like to do something innovative with data later. I just want my dashboards back right now. And in terms of the data analysts, I think it's also about, I just need to build my services dashboard. I just need to know what's going on in my service. And eventually, I would like to join that up with some other data from other services to more holistically understand what's going on with our residents, what they need. But they're not at a place where they think, that's what I need to do right now. It's what I want to do in the future. But yeah.
Do you think you can supercharge that by giving some amazing examples? Do you think if you as a team went, look, we've joined these together, we've managed to use a classifier of some description, some ML magic, and just show them what is feasible, do you think that would create the appetite within the business to then get the analysts to have a need to do it?
That's what I'm hoping will happen. I don't know for sure if it'll happen, but I think that's a main role of data and insight as a central team, with fairly advanced analysts, that we need to show people what is possible, to just get their ideas going. I think that started to happen with our vulnerable residents work. People did really see the value of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, we need to do something like that again. So I think, that's also like, what's next for data platform is one thing, but data and insight as a team as well. We've spent the past 18 months so focused on data platform. Actually, we've really neglected the insight part of the team. We're not the data team, we're the data and insight team, and how we help people to ask us the right questions and get meaning from their data, rather than just making sure that the data is there, is now where we need to be as a team.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions now. So David Cooper, do you have internal data sharing agreements? Oh, this is a good one. Go on, Lisa. This is definitely yours.
Yeah, we don't have specific data sharing agreements. Well, there might be some within different services, but at least in the way that our team works, when we use data that's been collected for a different purpose, we do a privacy impact assessment, and that needs to be signed off by the owners of that data. So for example, if I wanted to join council tax data and housing data to figure out who was illegally subletting their properties, I would need to do a privacy impact assessment. I would have to say why I want to do this, what the legal basis for doing this is, and that would have to be signed off by the owners of that data, because as a team, we don't own any data. We use data, but we don't own it. So that question of, can we use this data, always has to go back to the information asset owners.
Yeah. Yeah, we went back and forwards on this one quite a few times, didn't we? How we would do this and what it should look like.
Yeah.
Other organizations that we work with definitely do. And there are quite strict processes to go through to get access to data sets that you shouldn't normally have access to. I think within a local authority, that's slightly different to a national agency, for example. But I still think there is an aspect of the data catalog, for example, saying what a data set can be used for, what it shouldn't be used for, what aspects of it can be used for, analysis, that kind of thing. And we discussed a few times how we would automate those agreements and sort of permission sets. Yeah, it is a difficult one
It is. And I think a lot of people, when we first started talking about the data platform, thought, oh, great, GDPR isn't an issue anymore. It's like, no. This means we can more easily press a button and give you that data. But we still have to ask the question of why you should have the data in the first place. We still need to be using data responsibly. We should just, once we get the answer, be able to do that much more quickly and effectively.
Yeah.
But we still have to be
within the same
really
framework,
responsible
so
data.
you don't need to jump around, and everything should be ready.
Absolutely.
Hopefully that's answered your question, David. We've got Spark versus AWS debate is interesting. How much appetite do you think there would be from other local authorities to go open source by default, to build something from scratch, or are they going more towards the off-the-shelf data solutions just because it's easy, or because it's just easier? I don't think it is Spark versus AWS. I think we are running Spark within AWS. AWS has Spark built within it. EMR is Spark. You can write Spark natively. You don't have to use Glue. You can put Spark within Glue. You can move that dial as far down as you want. As I said earlier, I wouldn't advise anyone to build their own Spark cluster. I have tried it. It's hard. You will need experts to be able to maintain it.
And we'll never have those people in local government. Never.
It's just so don't even think about that. I think always use as much as you can from your cloud provider, but be aware that if you start using the tools that they provide that aren't based on open source technology, it will be very difficult for you to move later. There are some low-code solutions, as we discussed within AWS. They are better than they were when we tested them, Lisa. I will defend them. They are better than they were. I would still worry about using them. I still think it locks you in, really, really strongly locks you into that platform, which makes it hard to migrate. I guess most people don't migrate cloud providers too often, and if that's not a concern you have, go for it. Just use the tools. Do the easy thing, because frankly, there isn't enough time in the world to build everything from scratch. We use Spark because some experts have written it. I'm never going to write my own cluster compute software. It's maybe one day, but Spark is there for a reason, and the same thing applies to anything that AWS or insert cloud provider here provides. There are other ways you can do it. There's lots of cost stuff that you can use. So Databricks runs on all of them. You can use Databricks across any of the cloud providers, for example. Other providers exist, but there's different ways you can do it. So I would say it isn't Spark versus AWS. It is a spectrum.
Yeah, and just in terms of the appetite from local government, I think looking at similar projects across other councils, most of them are all going down the Azure route, and do want something that's just a little bit more off the shelf. But I think also in Hackney, we're just really lucky in terms of our approach to being open source as an organization. I think, in Hackney, we just kind of take that as read, that is a thing that we should do. One, as Jim said, because we don't want to lock ourselves in to really expensive contracts with particular providers, because we've seen time and time again that just means they lose incentive to meet our needs, and then we're stuck. But also, we feel it's really important to open source the things that we're doing to help other local authorities. We don't want all local authorities to be using their resources to reinvent the wheel time and time again. But I have been struck by some questions that I got at another conference that I spoke at. They were saying, like, well, why did you decide to make your playbook open source, public on the internet? It's like, it wasn't really even a consideration. Why would I not do that?
Wouldn't you? Yeah.
Yeah. Which reminds me, actually, I'm going to put in the chat, post a link to our playbook. Yes.
So I'm just going to, while you're doing that, I'm going to cover the next question, which I think is related. So AWS might be easier to explain to a local authority, commercial and procurement college. That was the steer that we had at the start of the project, was that we already have an account with AWS for our cloud infrastructure. let's just stay with that. That's why we want to stay within the bounds. Plus, we have a team supporting it. So it made sense that, you know, from a commercial point of view, you already have AWS. Let's stick with it. It just means that that one number gets bigger rather than having multiple numbers to track. So yeah, that made sense. I think the open source bit, it's CapEx versus OpEx, isn't it? It's, you know, you have to employ people to maintain open source versus you have to pay licenses for non-open source. So again, that's that part of the decision of where you move that dial to along that spectrum. Sounds like a great collaboration. For those who just want to be more effective in providing or managing data, what is the first thing you would focus on? Good product managers, building and maintaining a data catalog, GDPR training. I would say providing or managing data. I think probably a data catalog. I think if you've got data and you want to change the way that people use it, if you could do one thing, it is making people aware of what the data is, how it can be used and what it contains and how other people are using it. So if you can find a good data catalog, which relatively automatically will go through and build a view for people to gain understanding of your data, I would say a data catalog. I think GDPR training, I mean, that's important, but you should all be doing that anyway. If you're not doing GDPR training, then you probably need to start doing GDPR training. Good product managers are always necessary. Having been a product manager in the past and also in a relationship with a product manager, I get shocked for not saying that. Yeah, good product managers are always important, and I think that will. I think we missed that. I think both Lisa and I missed that at the start of the project. I think that's one thing that I will definitely push for on every single data platform project from now on, is that we need that user focus in the team as well as the technological and analytical focus.
Yeah, I mean, I would say of those three options, good product manager would be the top of my list, because then you know what the others should be.
Is the right thing to do.
Because, you know, yeah, I might say, yeah, absolutely, data catalog is the best thing. Or, yeah, these access controls, because people need to start sharing their data. But actually, when you talk to people about what they need today, that might look different. Yeah.
Okay. Do we want to just flick back there? I think we had some contact details on the slide, so we've posted the LinkedIn, but we're doing a couple of events later in the year that if people are interested to come speak to us in person, yeah, we're doing building the smarter state and think data for government later in the year. So feel free to come and speak to us. We've got our data services page up there. LinkedIn details there. So yeah, please feel free to contact either Lisa or myself. Lisa's even put her email address.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also want to do a plug. I mentioned, you know, we're going through a restructure. We're going to have to build a permanent team for this data platform. So if you're watching this and thinking, oh my gosh, I would love to work in Hackney and find out more about this data platform, please do get in touch with me.
I'll let you do that one. That's fine. Any other plugs you want to make? Are you a big day to London this year?
Yes, I will be. Yes.
I will be seeing you there then. So yeah, yes. Feel free to come and I mean, I don't think we have a stand. Well, we don't have a stand. We're not sponsoring it, but there will be a sizable number of MadeTech employees there. And I think some other colleagues and customers are probably going to end up coming as well. So yeah, we should all get together and create a great WhatsApp group again.
Yeah, I think a lot of people from Hackney will attend as well. So yeah.
Good, excellent. It'll be nice to meet people in person at last. So yeah, if there's no other questions, I think we are running out of time. So yeah, thank you very much for your time today, Lisa. It's been a pleasure as usual to have a chat with you. Did you want to say anything to finish up? Was there anything that you wanted to say?
Just thank you, everyone. Yeah, I hope this was helpful. If there's anything that we can do to try and make the a similar project in your local authority or your department easier, please do get in touch. Like we're really keen to help shortcut each other's learning. But like I said, we don't want to keep reinventing the wheel in local government. Our resources are already stretched, but going to be even more stretched, and we need to help each other as much as we can.
Absolutely. Yeah. Always here for a chat. So yeah, contact either, both, all of us. So yeah, we're here. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.